Four, please, on the pod from Los Angeles, California, Hally Leadbetter. And I have been excited to do this podcast because Hally has so much to offer, whether it be her content creation, journalism background, which is, I guess you could say, more recent, or we can talk about her own playing career in golf. And then we can also talk about the fact that she grew up in a prominent golf family, which she will get into. Her dad, David Leadbetter, one of the preeminent golf instructors of the last few decades. And then her mother, Kelly, also played professional golf on the LPGA Tour. So you've got all of that converging for her. And then on top of that, she's going to be one of the on-course reporters for the upcoming Creator Classic. So that was kind of part of the timing why I wanted this to work right now. So we talk about the Creator Classic. We talk about modern golf content creation, but we also talk about her career and how she got to where she's at and how she pivoted from playing professionally, coming from such a family, to being more on the media side. So that is Hally Leadbetter coming up right now on Eyes on Golf. Hally Leadbetter, this is what I have you as, because you are a jack of all trades in the golf world. I have you as Golf Digest, still contributing to Golf Digest, CBS Sports, LA Golf, Top Golf, Nike, host of the best golf podcast, and an on-course reporter for the upcoming Creator Classic. That's not to mention PGA Tour Live, other things you've contributed to. What did I miss right now, Hally?
I think you got it all, Jeff. I think that's it. I will say, for the record, the best golf podcast, the name, it's purely an SEO play. So, it's, as you know, there's
you didn't come up with it.
No, there's a lot of golf podcasts out there, and we're like, well, how are we going to get people to find it? So yeah, I mean, only second to Eyes on Golf for sure.
And that's you and your brother James doing that together in the last year. So that's been awesome stuff to see. And I think because, I listed a ton of things, and we're going to get into the Creator Classics coming up as we're taping this a week before. So I do want to talk a little bit about that, but I want to talk about your career because I'm sure so many people just see you pop up. For me, I remember when you were doing stuff for Golf Digest originally before we met, it was just another, kind of before TikTok was really a big thing, Hally, before Instagram Reels was a big thing, you were doing, I would say, 9x16 content for Golf Digest before anyone else. So when people ask you, what do you do in golf? What do you say?
You know what? I'll be completely honest. It has been on my to-do list for a very long time. And I keep just pushing it away to figure out a concise way to describe what exactly I do, because I think that I'm very lucky. I've gotten some opportunities, especially in the last year or two, where I've really gotten to explore a wide variety of different things. And I think because of that, it is kind of hard to put it to kind of nail down one or two things. But I would say, if I had to sort of define myself maybe by the things that I really enjoy most, it'd probably be as a host and a producer, and I think host could really apply to, a broadcasting or interviewing people. And producer to me is whether it's social content with a cell phone or, something that's on a bigger stage, just being involved in the production of something creative, wherever that may live. It doesn't really matter to me. So yeah, those are kind of the two things that I would if I try to keep it simple, those are the kind of two things I would say that can sort of encompass everything.
Well, I'm looking at your Instagram page right now, and I have staring at me, I have Carl Anthony Towns staring at me. I have Alfonso Ribeiro, a lot of videos of your brother. And then I also have the Only Fan Hollywood style full on production crew skit that you just did. So there's a lot of stuff going on there. And I want to back up even further because I remember, I want to say it was 2 years ago, having a conversation that you were breaking down when you went from pro status to amateur status, back to amateur status. And so at one point in your life, you did try, I believe, to become a pro golfer. I know you transferred schools a little bit. What was your competitive golf history like?
Yeah, my competitive golf history was such a roller coaster. So growing up in a golf family, my dad being the teacher that he is, and my mom playing on the LPGA, I was not really into golf. So I didn't really and I'm a very all or nothing person, and I've kind of just like, for better or for worse. I think growing up for me, I was like, I don't want anything to do with golf, and all of a sudden, I'm like, I want everything to do with golf. So that switch flipped very quickly for me when I was about 13 years old. And then I was very determined to become a professional golfer. I ended up playing in college at the University of Arkansas, transferred to Rollins College. And when I was in college, like I was a good player. Like by the end of my college career, there was a time where I was ranked 10th amateur in the world and I won the Southern Amateur and I was a good player. But for me, with that in mind, there is always something in the back of your head that's like, well, maybe I could play professionally. And that was kind of always the dream when I was like 14, 15 to play on the LPGA. But I also had these aspirations of working in the media side of golf. And, talking to my parents, they were very supportive either way. And, I think my mom was, having played on the LPGA, was like, listen, Hallie, like, this is a lonely life. Like, this is a really difficult lifestyle. And if I'm completely honest, like, I don't think this is a lifestyle that you are going to enjoy. And she's like, but that being said, if you wanted to give it a try, you've got our full support. So yeah, I gave it a try for about 6 or 7 months. And lo and behold, my mom was right. Was not the lifestyle for me. It is definitely not for everybody. And it definitely took me some time to be okay with that. I think, like, when I found myself more excited about, what I think the job that I had applied for was a Golf Digest social media coordinator position. When I found myself more excited to go live in a shoebox in Manhattan than,
I approve.
live in Florida and sort of grind it out on the women's mini tours, I had to sort of honor that, honor what was in my heart, if you will, and say like, hey, there's still a way that you can be attached to this game. All the work that you put in is not all for naught. And, let's just kind of explore this shift and this other passion that I had, which was, sort of the entertainment side of things. So yeah. And then, I still actually, it's funny. So you mentioned I did have my professional status for such a long time because I was under the impression that it was going to be a very difficult process, in the same way that like I like procrastinate, like doing my taxes. Cause I'm like, this is going to be really painful and difficult. And it was literally, Jeff, the most simple. I think it took me 8 minutes to fill out the form. And then I have friends at the USGA who reached out to the amateur pro, I guess department or whatever what department would be called. And they were like, oh yeah, like no reason why it shouldn't be immediate for her to get her amateur status back. And I was like, oh my God, are you serious? This entire time I've been putting this off. But yeah, so now I'm an amateur again.
Well, I believe, right, it's based on how much money you made as a
Not
professional.
much, apparently.
So that may have been why it was such an easy
They
transition.
were like, oh yeah, you're good. Go ahead.
You mentioned your parents, Kelly, your mom, and your dad, David, who, I walk around sometimes, I turn the corner and all of a sudden I could be in New York, Florida, California. It's like, oh, David Leadbetter Academy right here. Like, look at that. And I think so. Where exactly did you grow up in Florida?
I grew up in Orlando,
Okay.
grew up at Lake Nona, where they had the first Solheim Cup ever there. They used to have this event called the Tavistock Cup, which would be like Isleworth versus Lake Nona, and Tiger played on the Isleworth team, and we had like
Mhm.
Justin Rose and whatnot. So I grew up there, and then my dad's academy was at Lake Nona, and then they moved it out to Champions Gate, which is just outside of Orlando in a place called Davenport. So yeah, kind of my whole, I'd say, birth to, I'd say 11th, 12th, 10th grade was when I was, went over down to IMG for sports academy to really, I was like, oh, I got to get a lot better here if I want to play in college. But yeah, I spent a lot of time in Orlando, and then, after my stint at Arkansas, transferred to Rollins College, which is also in Orlando. So
Winter Park.
all roads lead back to Orlando for me.
Yeah, I think there's an all roads lead to Disney there or something.
For sure.
But the reason I ask is obviously around your dad's academy, you had some hacks like Doug Smith, walking around. We don't have to talk about them. But there were a lot of future PGA Tour players hanging around, and you're around a lot of talent, whether you know it or not. Growing up, you're this little kid probably wandering the range, smacking some balls around, and there are future major champions right there next to you. What was
Yeah.
that experience like?
It's funny. In the same way that people ask me, like, "Oh, is it cool having your dad be David Ledbetter?" And I'm like, "Oh, compared to all my other dads, like, he's really great." I think that I don't really know any other way, Like, for
Yeah.
me, getting picked up from school and then going to the driving range, and my dad's giving, Justin Rose, Ian Poulter, Faldo, Price, all these people, different lessons. Like, I'd just walk out on the range with my backpack and I'd be like, "Hi, Dad." And then, say what's up to Justin or whoever's out there at the time. He had his own special lesson tee. There was on the back of the range at Champions Gate, there's a really long lesson tee for kind of everybody to practice. And then my dad had his own like private lesson tee with the bays and whatnot. So I would just, walk through the little hedge and be like, "Hi, how's it going?" And interrupt. God knows what he was doing. And so, yeah, no, it was definitely, I mean, that was normal for me. But looking back, I do think it was, it was really cool to have that experience and see what a relationship is like between, a great player and his or her coach. You think about like Michelle Wee or Suzanne Pedersen or Lydia Ko, all these incredible women that my dad has coached as well. And I think that was a huge part of me sort of going from like not wanting anything to do with golf to wanting to get into golf, because I think around 11 or 12, now I think about it, is when my dad like started teaching Michelle, and she's just a couple of years older than me. So, and I
Mm.
didn't have any sisters growing up. So for me, watching her out there, just a specimen of an athlete, ripping balls. I just thought she was so cool. And Michelle would give me all of her like hand me down Nike stuff. So I would be like decked out like this tour player. Meanwhile, like just shanking the crap out of it on the range, like two stalls down. Oh, which was hilarious. But no, it was definitely a very unique upbringing, but one that I am very appreciative of. I just think it, gives me a really good understanding. I always laugh if people don't know my background, and they'll be like, "How long have you been working in golf?" And I'm like, "Well, I'm 31, so 31 years." I've been around it for a minute.
Well, Michelle, I mean, I know obviously you're very close with Michelle. You hosted a podcast with her before. I guess James was, he knows he was option B.
Yeah, yeah,
Um,
James is option B, yeah, but no, Michelle's busy right now. She's about to have her second baby, and yeah, she's since moved out of Los Angeles, and yeah, she is in full family mode right now. So I'm very very excited for her.
so for her bursting on the scene as a teenager, in this sort of walking into the unknown at an age that none of us can even imagine being in the spotlight. Her and Freddie Adu right around the same time. I still remember as a kid that being so instrumental for me, thinking like, oh man, I could be a teenage athlete. Didn't work out, but I remember watching them. What was it like for you being around Michelle and maybe being her her friend, her that ability for her to have a friend in Orlando while all this was going on?
Yeah, it was really cool. To me, she was or is still like my big sister. So I think she's such a wonderful role model. But it was kind of crazy at times. We'd go out to dinner or go to the mall. People be like, "Oh my God, Michelle Wee, like, can I take a picture? Can I take a picture?" So it just gave you like a real appreciation for, especially looking back on all the things she had to go through off of the golf course as well as this superstar, sort of like mega marketing, goddess, and but with an incredible golf game. So yeah, it was kind of crazy, but I think for her and for me, like, it just kind of became the norm, and she got, was always incredibly polite to her fans and always stopped to take pictures and talk to them. So yeah, I think it just gave me even now like such an appreciation for everything that she's been through on and off the golf course.
What about for you? Your dad, your mom, even your older brothers, would you take lessons from them or does that just not work?
Ooh, that's a great question. So for me, when I was, yes, like, I would say my dad has always been my coach, but there was a time, especially my junior and senior years in high school where I just could not cope. Like I was like, I can't, you don't know what you're talking about. and and so that was, I think that was a time where, and at that time I was at IMG, so I had another coach. And so I really would work with him, or so I thought, even though I think my dad was always kind of, looking over his shoulder and be like, oh, okay, what's going on? What's going on? So I also think for me, I had to learn to mature as a player because I do think that having essentially 24/7 access to David Ledbetter, as great as that can sound, it also can be something where you then become dependent on that. And
Mhm.
so, and my dad being my dad, wanting to help his children as much as possible, like that's how we spend time together. We go hit balls, we go chip and putt and whatnot. So I think I also had to learn to be like, no, I had a lesson last week. If I'm not hitting it well, it's what he just told me. Like I don't need to go back and ask again. So I think for me, it was learning to be like, okay, it's this dad mode now. This is coach mode now. And in high school, I didn't really have a great grasp of that. And then when I was in college, I was able to kind of differentiate those two things and be like, okay, now it's golf lesson time. Now this is just dad and daughter time. So yes, he has, but it has always been my coach. But there were some times in there for me where I would be like, no, I can't. I need to talk to someone else about this.
What was the difference between the Arkansas and the Rollins experience?
Oh, wow. That is a great question. So it's funny because this is something that I talk to a lot of, maybe aspiring collegiate golfers about. I think that there is a kind of a negative stigma around transferring. And I think especially when you're at that age, right? You're
Well,
18.
especially then. I mean, you transferred a decade ago, not to make you feel old, but a
Yeah.
decade ago.
Now transferring is like the hot thing. Like if you don't transfer, that's weird. Like transfer, get a little taste of a different situation. But I honestly think when even more, it just makes more and more sense to me. When you're between the ages of 17 and 18 and 21 and 22, you are going through a lot as a person. Like you are really figuring out what your priorities are and what you potentially want to do with your life. And for me, when I graduated high school, I wanted to be on the LPGA tour, and Arkansas was that place that I needed to be at. Come 2 years later, I thought, "You know what? I'm not 100% sure if that's something that is what I wanna be doing." And so it again, just going back to the theme that I said before about, like, kind of just, like, following what was in my heart at the time, I do not regret going to Arkansas at all. Like, that is where I needed to be for those first couple years. I got so much better at golf. I met so many incredible people. Shauna Estes Taylor and Mike Adams were amazing coaches. Like, my game, like, I got so much better. But for me as like a person, I ultimately needed to have some more stuff going on outside of golf. So when I transferred to Rollins, if you go to an SEC school, it's such a different experience than, I mean, sports are, especially in a place like Arkansas, because there are no
Mhm.
professional sports teams in Arkansas. So if you're a Razorback, you are, a superhero. So that was a really amazing thing to experience. And then going to a place like Rollins, which was kind of a little bit more similar, like where I went to high school, in the sense that it was very small, super international, a liberal arts school. And that for me was, obviously you don't have the resources of a University of Arkansas, but an incredible golf program. I think, my senior year at Rollins, it's D2, but we won this, the school's, I think, like 13th national women's golf championship. It was an amazing experience, and it's just kind of like what I actually started playing better at Rollins because I think I was just a more well-rounded person because I did the college radio in the morning before I went to workouts, and I was on the student athlete advisory committee, and I went and sit down to my teacher down with my teachers and talked about life and all these different things. So it's just kind of like what I needed at the time. So I think that transferring doesn't mean that like the place that you went to first was like the wrong decision. It was definitely the right decision for me, and then it just got to a point where it was just like time to move on to another thing that aligns more with how I'm feeling at that moment. So yeah, very different experiences, but grateful for both.
There might be more to do in Winter Park than Fayetteville, but
But
I, I don't know. Shout out to Samantha Marks, who I think you were a teammate who just announced she's working for TGL. So back in the Winter Park Orlando
yeah,
sphere.
so funny thing about Samantha Marks, when I was at school in Orlando, we both went to a school called Lake Highland, which is down the road from Rollins. And Sam's a year below me. So I think I was in seventh grade, she was in sixth grade. We both played on the high school women's golf team. She absolutely kicked my butt. Like, it was the number one player. I was like fighting for the fifth spot with my like 46s and 47s for 9 holes. But then it ended up, I went to Arkansas. She ended up going to UNC, and then I transferred out of Arkansas, and she transferred into Arkansas. So we have a lot of, we were like ships in the night there, but we go back very, very far. And yeah, pumped for her with her new gig at TGL.
Maybe transferring was cool back then.
Yeah, everyone's doing it, Jeff. Come on.
Well, I want to you teased this before. So you go to Golf Digest, and you said there's like this lightning rod feeling of you're in New York City. You're not playing professional golf, but you are in the thick, at the forefront of not just golf media, but changing golf media at the time. So we're talking. You graduated college, I believe, in 2016 after transferring. So this is a little after that. I mean, we're kind of not Tiger's on his way back. This is Spieth, peak Spieth era. Rory,
Yeah.
what's going on with you at Golf Digest?
Yeah, so I was a social media coordinator at Golf Digest, which was such a great way to get my foot in the door, because a lot of the stuff that I do now like lives on social. So I always think that having like a really good understanding of social media is so helpful, like for anybody that's looking to, have any kind of role in media. You can't have a, like, these days you can't have a role in media, and social media is not going to play a part of that in some capacity. So whether it's clips that you're doing like a podcast, or things you're shooting directly for social. So yeah, it was a definitely interesting time. I would spend 5 days a week staring at my computer, scheduling tweets, Facebook, Instagram, Instagramming a couple times a day. I remember when Instagram stories became a thing. It was like, oh wow, this is crazy, and we got to think of another thing. And God, I feel for these Instagram, or I feel for these social media managers now that have to deal with TikTok as well. It just feels like platform after platform after platform, and generally they don't like hire another person, so it's on you to schedule all the stuff, come up with all the content. And and it's interesting, like Golf Digest, I mean, they have such an incredible social team. Will Irwin, who heads up all their social, is fantastic. But it takes a lot of energy, especially something at Golf Digest, because I mean, the whole purpose of a Golf Digest social would be different than, like, I don't know, my personal social, which would generally just be to like entertain. Like, you're looking at a Golf Digest or any web publication. The purpose of it is to get people to go back to the site. So it always makes me laugh when people will be in the comments like, why don't you just post the video? I'm like, well, one, they probably don't have the rights, and two,
Of
they're trying to
course.
get you back to their website, you dummy. So it always makes me laugh when people give social media managers a hard time in the comments. I'm like, listen, they're just trying to keep their jobs, man. Like,
Trying to
relax.
keep their jobs. And you didn't even mention with different platforms. I mean, you got to make sure that you're, vertical 9x16 for TikTok, Instagram,
Oh
which by
yeah.
the way have different algorithms. You got to get 1x1 for Twitter or
Oh
X.
yeah.
You got
And
to
then
get
also,
16:9 for YouTube.
yeah, and then even and the demographics on each of those platforms are different as well. Like, you're on, I guarantee you, the Golf Digest Facebook tone is a hell of a lot different than the Golf Digest TikTok tone. So there's a lot of different factors that go into it, and I am very grateful. Again, I think it's 10 times more complicated now than when I was running those channels, but I'm very grateful for that experience, because I think it just gives me a little bit of insight into how things are working now.
But so you're evolving your career. You still are involved with Golf Digest a little bit.
Mhm.
I didn't even mention you've got your series that I think is it through Golf Digest that I can watch on a Delta flight?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, on the tee.
on the tee. So you hit this point where you are right at the forefront of modern golf media, and I think that's a conversation that we can segue into a little bit because we think about, and we're around the same age, growing up, that like we probably remember our parents watching Golf Channel, and if you wanted golf content that was not live golf, that's where you got it. Now, if you turn on Golf Channel, it's almost exclusively live golf, and if you want to find shoulder content to golf, other things going on, you've got to go into the social media sphere. So, how did you feel yourself, perhaps, being at the forefront of all this, connecting with fans and followers in a way that people were hungry for different forms of content, digital forms of content a few years back?
Yeah, so I think the definition of a golfer, well, one, a golfer, and two, a golf fan, and three, along with that, just what golf content is and what kind of content people want to consume is rapidly evolving. To your point, you just said we used to, it was broadcast and like what, like the big break and maybe like Faraday and what we had, like a couple of different things.
Well,
That was
Golf Central was like 3 or 4 different sets with
Oh
instruction and
yeah.
with different stuff going on.
And then
Yeah.
you have the morning drive, and that was kind of it. Whereas now, I think especially because of these cell phones, right? Like it really gives so many different people the ability to create golf content. And that's great because there are so many different people that are looking for different types of golf content. Like there's a lot of people here in Los Angeles that I guarantee you did not watch the final round of the PGA Tour event last week, but they're like obsessed with Adventures in Golf, Eric Anders Lang show, Like, so I think right now, it's just really exploding in terms of like the different types of content that people are looking for because there are just so many different types of people that we've never seen before that are interested in golf. And that's something that like I find so interesting because listen, I'll be the first to say like, listen, there's some types of golf content that like I don't actively go out and seek, like I'm not like I don't have my notifications on for every single time a good video comes out. Like, but I'm a huge admirer of their work and I think what they bring to the game is really important. And so it always makes me laugh when a new series or a creator trying to do something in golf or, something like the Creator Classic, which we're going to talk about in a little bit. And people are in the comments like lame, boring. And it's like, listen, this wasn't made for you. Sit on your couch and tune in to the broadcast if that's what you're into. Like, but just because something isn't your cup of tea doesn't make it bad or cringe or whatever, So there's so many different kind of creators, and I hope that people are able to have the awareness that like, hey, just because something's like not, doesn't like tickle my fancy doesn't mean that it's like bad, so I just think it's really important to keep that in mind and to encourage people, hey, bring your takes, bring your show ideas, bring your competitive golf ideas. Like I just think we're no longer like sort of we don't have to be like, oh, it's traditional golf broadcast or nothing. Like with along with cell phones, small DSLR cameras, you've got Twitch streams, there's so much different stuff, and anybody can be a content creator, and people should be encouraged to do so if that's something that they want to do.
Do you feel that there are golf fans are different now, or year over year we get different forms of golf fans because of these different entryways into the game?
Yeah, I think they're really different, and I think again, just guys going to the Creator Classic, if we are looking for more people to tune into professional golf, to tune into that traditional broadcast, we can start piquing their interest by meeting them where they're at, which is kind of what the PGA Tour and Pro Shop are doing with this Creator Classic. They're saying, hey, Gen Z, YouTube, TikTok fans, like we're going to have your favorite creators, the people that you love watching to play golf. We're going to put them on this East Lake Tour Championship. Is going to be the next day. So maybe then you'll tune in to see how the pros play it. I just think that's like so brilliant and so smart. And we can increase the fandom of traditional golf by sort of merging the various types of content and, creators and professional golfers if we do continue to do that.
Yeah, if your people are with us, we're 29 minutes in. I thought we would talk about the Creator Classic more off the top, but I got caught up in learning everything about your career, Hallie. But I do want to talk about it because you will be an on-course reporter for the Creator Classic.
Yeah.
This is the first event. For those that don't know, this is going to be a 9-hole live event the Wednesday before the Tour Championship. So this is on the course at Eastlake. I believe it's the renovated back nine that it will be played on.
Mhm.
We've got we've got Fat Perez playing. We've got Good playing. We've got the Bryan brothers playing. We've got Roger Steele. We've got a ton of other names coming out and playing. And, it's going to be a little bit of an experiment. It's going to be the first of its kind that we're going to be seeing this. We've seen other, Good has had a couple live events featuring
Mhm.
creators. This is going to be the first one that we'll really see the day before a PGA Tour event, like you said, on a PGA Tour course. Why is now the right time for this? Why have the stars aligned for this Creator Classic?
Well, I think that one, it's the end of the PGA Tour season, right? Like this
Mm-hmm.
is the biggest stage that the PGA Tour, has access to. At least like this is their big
Yep.
moment. This is the PGA Tour's signature of signature events, if you will. And I think that what better way for the PGA Tour to signal to the all of golf fans everywhere that, hey, creators, we take you seriously, and hey, golf fans, like we're seeing what you actually want to watch, and we're willing to, so much so that we're willing to bring you out to our Super Bowl venue the day before our biggest championship starts. So I think that all the stars are aligning in the sense that this is the perfect time. This is the biggest event, and yeah, I'm just really excited to see how it all goes down. I think it's going to be really fun, especially with that 8 holes regular stroke play. The ninth hole is going to be a playoff between the top 4 spots. That's going to be really exciting. And actually, Roger and I had the opportunity. We both played Eastlake last week, and it was very hard, Jeff. It was very hard. So it was hard. It was hot.
What's the scouting report on Roger Steele's game right now?
Oh my gosh, he rips it. I was like, "Can you settle down, sir? Like, this is insane." So it was funny. He was like, "You should be playing. You should be playing." I'm like, "No, I'm good. I just want to. I just want to go. Oh no! And oh, good shot, good shot." So I'm really excited to get out there and watch everybody.
Because I saw, people are coming out with their own odds, and Roger's up there on some people's boards, and I'm like, wait a second, good for him. But we've got some. I mean, Wesley Bryan, obviously, and
Yeah,
George Bryan, kind of play PGA Tour, high
yeah,
level professional golf. And then we've got college players. Like, if Roger shows up, that speaks volumes for the people to kind of, push their game later in life. And that's not calling Roger old as much as after college age, putting in the work to, if you've been following him on social media, you've seen his game evolve into
yeah.
really
He's a
high
good
level.
player, man. I mean, he hits it super far. I think I'm 99.9% sure. Yes, he did tell me this. I am sure. He did long drive for a minute. So he rips it and he hits it
Yeah.
really solid and he's a good putter. Yeah, I think he's going to play well for sure.
All right. Well, that's one scouting report. I want to ask from your perspective of, you've been a host for PGA Tour Live, you've done on-course reporting and interviewing for CBS Sports, for LPGA events. You've covered a lot of golf, a lot of professional golf. How do you think you will cover the Creator Classic, the players in this event, perhaps a little differently than professional golfers?
So, yeah, so I think for this, and I talking to the team that's running this event, they don't want to lose the competition. Like I think what's really unique about this is like one, okay, we're playing this incredible venue where there's going to be the Tour Championship the next couple days, and it's stroke play. Like this is a real golf tournament, so I am going to cover it. I would any other way, but I think what is going to be a little bit different is when you walk with the professionals generally, like you're running up ahead of them, like you're always a step ahead because you're not going to be interacting with them at
Yeah.
all, but we have been encouraged to really interact with the players, and so I think our personal relationships will help a lot with that. Like asking somebody, how are they feeling right then, which you would never, do unless it was, some sort of like, it was, approved well ahead of time and it was like a planned out thing. And, so you would never really do that in a professional golf tournament. So I think still covering it with the same, like, again, this is a competitive tournament. It's a stroke play
Mhm.
event, but I think we're going to be able to have more access because these players are also very used to having cameras in their face and to talking a lot in between golf shots because they're filming all of their rounds all the time. So I think in that case, it's going to be a little bit more fun and lighter, but still maintaining like, hey, this is a PGA Tour live production. The same people that cover professional golf, like we've all that are involved in this. Every single person that's covering this event has covered professional golf. So I think it's making that switch in our mind. Like, oh no, it's okay to walk up to Roger and be like, Roger, you ripped that one. How did it feel? Which, like, again, you would never do in a
Well,
regular
I think
tournament.
he'll react. He'll react well to that. It's if he hits a bad shot. That's a
Yeah,
different
Roger, what
question.
happened there, man? Yeah, exactly. Which I told him I would also do. So it's fine.
So, I mean, there's going to be some unique aspects to this. You kind of talked about there are certain people that might watch certain forms of golf, YouTube golf, that don't watch the professional game, or professional fans that are like, why would I watch someone who's not a professional play golf on
Mhm.
YouTube? How do you feel like maybe there'll be a coming together of the two sides in this case, and maybe a truce between the two?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's what we're hoping for, right? I think it's funny. We always in the golf media space, there's always like the old heads and then there's like the new media. And it's like, hey, let's just have the utmost respect on both, I guess, if there are sides of this thing. And I would just encourage everyone to keep an open mind too. Like, hey, tune into the Creator Classic. It might be something that you really enjoy. And then you might find yourself heading over to YouTube and watching some of this, the creators' content. So yeah, I'm hoping that everybody can just keep an open mind and realize like if it ends up not being something that you enjoy, that's okay. There's plenty of other things for you to watch.
Why do you think that there are consumers out there that love to go onto YouTube and watch non-professional golfers play competitive rounds against each other, yourself included? I have my opinions, but why do you think fans have evolved in that sort of way?
Well, I think golf is honestly it's that only game that you can really do that, right? Like there's not a lot like a bunch of YouTube creators, at least that to my
Could there
knowledge.
be? I think that's
Could
the
there
question.
be?
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe we need to look into that. But I just think it's that ability to one, you're going to occasionally see like an insane golf shot, like a Robbie Berger, Fat Perez hole in one, and that is going to be so much fun to watch. But I also just think it allows for the personality of these people to come out. So if they weren't golf YouTubers, maybe they'd be some other kind of YouTuber. Like they're all just like funny, entertaining people in their own right. Yeah, sure, maybe they're going to be decent golfers, but if they were the professional level, they'd most likely be playing professionally. So I think that one, it's the fact that you are going to probably see some good shots, and that's really fun too. But it is that the personality, I think, and also the fact that like it's the relatability too. So if they hit a good shot, it's like, wow, that's amazing. And if they hit a bad shot, it's like, oh, look at that, it happens to everybody. So I think it's a combination of a lot of things, and golf is just like the perfect storm for for like YouTube content to be created that no other sport is capable of.
And it's funny you mentioned Robbie Berger, Bobby Fairways, Bob Does Sports. I mean, this is someone who Bob Does Sports was originally supposed to be comedy, and they kind of ran into golf and realized that was their vertical. And I think when I was try to pinpoint it myself, I feel like there's, we watch golf every week, and golf rounds are sometimes 5 hours at the professional level right now, and you can condense an 18 hole round for a creator to 30 minutes to an hour.
Yeah.
And I think that people still want to watch competition. And maybe you can't do that as much in other sports. I would love to see if there were compelling figures that were created a YouTube basketball league. Could that work?
Mm,
And not live. I'm not talking about live to start. I think that's where the Creator Classic is going to be really interesting, because I think a lot of these personalities became popular because they were able to take the live aspect out of things and
Mhm.
cut everything down and make everything condensed and make everything sharp and highly edited, that now they've created these personalities that when they do go out and play live, that now becomes this compelling form of, well, I know this personality. I've seen their highly produced version of themselves, but now I'm intrigued and sitting at the edge of my seat to see how they react in a live setting.
Yeah, for sure. No, I think that that's a great point. Also, yeah, the snackability, if you will, of YouTube content, which is compared to social, like relatively long form, but still a hell of a lot shorter than sitting on your couch. You know, you get your Saturday, your Sunday. Not many people, at least our age, you know, and that don't work in golf, are gonna be like, oh, it's a beautiful day outside. I'm inside every other day of the week. Let me go sit inside and watch this final round of golf. You know, maybe a snackable, like a quick little chop highlights of it. But I think generally, I think that's a big selling point too of the YouTube golf is like it's not going to take a couple of hours for me to watch this.
You talked about Pro Shop, Chad Mum. Obviously, everyone knows from Full Swing, Netflix Full Swing, all the production there, and moving over. Not to get too deep into the weeds at the business side, but creating Pro Shop, which has also bought Scratch, which there's a hat behind me for those watching on video, which is still a portion of Scratch, is owned by the PGA Tour, still based out of Ponte Vedra Beach, but owned by Pro Shop. There's a lot of movement going on in the creator space in the business world, but not just Pro Shop, the world of golf creation. When we see the Creator Classic, I know we're talking ahead. We don't know exactly what it's going to look like. You're going to be there on the ground, but you don't know exactly what it's going to look like. But what can this event? How can it affect a little bit of the trajectory of golf media, and what will people see from this that might cause a change to the way that golf, and specifically the professional game, perhaps will be covered down the line in the future?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's going to legitimize, at least from a the legacy golf media for to be to look at creators, and not that I know of any specifically, but just in terms of like turning their nose up at YouTubers, like, oh, that it's like, hey, listen, a lot of these guys maybe have bigger audiences than your entire outlet. So I think that it legitimizes them as not only creators but potential outlets themselves, and getting, hey, if you want these people to pay attention to professional golf, like we need to get them more in the mix here because they have audiences that really have, care what they have to say. So I think this is going to be a huge step. I think if it's a big success, hopefully we'll definitely see more of these down the road, which will
Maybe
just,
you'll play in one.
who knows, I got to practice, but yeah, I just think that it legitimizes it further and further. And again, that doesn't mean to say that regular, your broadcast golf is going to go away. Like, I love Jim Nance and Dottie and Amanda and Cole and the rest of the squad just as much as anybody. I really do. Like, I will sit there and watch it because I love traditional golf, but I think that it's good. The more elements that we can bring in, to crisscross that over, I think it's going to be really good for the growth of the professional game, as well as just growth of golf as a whole.
Do you consider yourself a golf creator? That's not a gotcha question. I'm generally curious.
Yes, I'd say so. Yeah, I'd say so. I mean, it's so interesting, right? Like, I have so much respect for the YouTubers. Like, I don't really personally have any interest in like doing the play a hole with me or a match against so and so. Like, and I listen. I might literally next week you're gonna be like, you just told me you weren't gonna do that. But I guess for me, I really, really enjoy like the comedy side of things. Like, I like
Mhm.
really making fun of golf, not in like a
No,
mean,
no, I know.
nasty
Yeah.
way, but I just think golf is so ripe for comedy. So yes, I do consider myself, I guess, a golf creator, but I am attempting to kind of like really double down into this niche of like funny golf stuff, as opposed to, I think the YouTubers are fantastic, and I'm, as far as now, like, I'm gonna leave that to them.
Yeah, I mean, why make fun of golf, right? It's only the engine that has made
Yeah.
your entire family, for the last
Yeah, exactly.
few few decades. Uh, I think
Yeah.
that's good. So the skit world that you're working on right now, I talked about OnlyFan
Yes.
went
Yes.
viral a little bit. I know you were doing some I was it NBC or Golf Now technically
Yeah, yeah.
that
So I did a show with them last year, which was so much fun. And then they kind of pivoted their strategy to really focus on golf instruction. And for me, like I just love doing it so much. So I got that literally same team together and said, I'll pay for it. I want to continue to make these. So yeah, so we put out three of them. We put out Men's Grill Room, Forgiveness, and then OnlyFan. And yeah, I think almost 12 million impressions across those three,
unbelievable.
which was pretty awesome. So it makes me happy that people are enjoying them.
Well, I know your brother James is closely involved in that, and I started following him, which is a variety of golf, your podcast, and Upright Citizens Brigade.
Yes, yes. James is very into improv.
So
It's hilarious because I used to do improv when I lived in New York, and it's so much fun. And improv for anybody that is looking to get into like doing on camera or any kind of live television, improv is such a great skill set to have because it's all about yes and being a great listener. Even for someone that's always kind of my downfall is when I on live television, I normally kind of like literally and figuratively clutch to my notes because I'm like, I need to know what I'm going to say next. And improv is so about just reacting in the moment. And so, yeah, it's made me really happy. I got to level 3 of improv in New York, and then I traveled so much. So I ended up, and if you miss 2 classes, you're kicked out of there. So James is now in level 5 here in LA
wow.
and just crushing it and having so much fun. And I guess what's cool about doing it in LA is like you're doing it with all kinds of people, like actors, comedians, like just, and you're like, hey, you look familiar. And like, oh yeah, I was in that like ABC show or whatever. So,
I was a dead body in Law and Order.
yeah, exactly. Oh, it's really funny you said that. I swear to God, somebody I was with yesterday was a dead body in CSI.
I think there's like 5 times in Entourage that Johnny Drama says he played a dead body. So
Yeah,
that's
it's so good.
that sounds like improv. It's basically like having a handicap. You just like progress.
Yeah, no, for sure. That's it. Exactly. And it definitely gets more complicated as you go, but the general just like principles of being a good listener and you just always have something to say because you can pull something from whatever someone just said and come up with a question or a comment. And so, even if you're not wanting to do live television, if you just want to become a better conversationalist, I highly recommend taking an improv class.
So there's a big difference there in New York and LA. I want to know what's the difference between New York and LA from a golf media standpoint.
Ooh, that's a great question. I would say in New York, it was very much like, when I was living in New York, that's when I was working for Golf Digest full time. So like Golf Digest was there, Golf Mag was there, East Coast. You also got now Golf Channel up the road in Connecticut. So very like legacy media brand there.
Mm,
In LA, you got a lot more of like the creators here.
yeah.
You got a lot of actors that are looking into golf and YouTubers and Pro Shop is based out of here. So I'd say like a lot more like Hollywood media entertainment creators over here. And then on the East Coast, New York is kind of like the OG, like hardcore golf media. So I love both. I love both.
No, but I think that's something I didn't think about that as much. But yeah, a lot of golf creator content originates out of Southern California, Arizona, Florida, right? I mean, that's maybe some Texas as well. Like those are the bread and butter places.
And I will say probably a big reason for that too, Jeff, is like especially Florida and Arizona, like are they have very nice public golf courses. I will say that's kind of like the biggest struggle
Yes.
in LA and also probably like the New York area. Like you can't just roll up with your camera to Bel Air. Like you can't do that. And then also the public courses, frankly, are just not great in LA. But if you go to Phoenix, if you go to Florida, there's a multitude of beautiful public golf courses where you could shoot as much content as you want. So I'm seeing a lot coming out of those areas.
Well, I always tell people this, like, I grew up in New York in the Northeast, so many private courses, great courses, but historic private courses. You've got a real 6-month season where public course demand is high. And, there's definitely a very exclusive feel. Then I talk to people who I've met from Florida, especially, and there's just such an easier ability to play at a more casual level that just doesn't exist. So I think what I've learned is that different areas of the country have different golf cultures. I've got a podcast as we're taping this. I believe I'm going to release it before yours this week that we're taping this, Jared Dorfler, who just quit his job to create a mill. He's creating putters, his own putter company out
Wow.
of Iowa. Very different experience than New York or LA,
For sure. For sure.
but he's going for it.
That's awesome. Good for him.
So there's a lot of different things. I know you. I got to let you go, but the last thing I need to ask, because every time I get on an airplane, I have to think, what is Hally going to say if I get caught not wearing sweatpants or shorts on an airplane? So it's become a little bit of your reputation.
I'm
I
glad I'm
mean,
influencing you, Jeff.
you have to. So what I'm talking about is basically you've said you have to wear sweatpants on an airplane. And anyone that doesn't is insane. Am I vaguely
Yeah,
in the right
that's it.
ballpark there?
For sure, for sure. I will say it was really funny. A couple weeks ago, I was on an airplane and I didn't have like my sweatpants. Like I could not wear them. Like they were gross. Like they were sweaty
Interesting.
and gross. And so I was like, I gotta wear jeans. And I'm like, it'll be fine. Like no one's gonna see me. That's insane. And I literally get on this plane, and this guy, I'm walking down the aisle, and this guy just goes, jeans. And I was like, ah! And he was like, how could you? And I was like, oh my God. And I felt like I had so caught red-handed. And I'm like, I'm sure the people behind us, like just trying to get to their seats, was like, what the heck is going on here? But I appreciate that person for holding me accountable. There is no reason, dirty sweatpants over jeans. It was no excuse. It was no excuse.
Did you ask him where he follows you, or was there any
I
more
think it's
conversation?
Instagram. Yeah, I think it was Instagram, because then I posted about it and he replied and was like, had to hold you accountable or something. And I was like, hey, I appreciate that. So
it's not going to happen again, right?
Won't happen again. Won't happen again.
All right, Hally, we've mentioned all the things that you've done, but also if you've listened this far, please watch the Creator Classic. Tune in for Hally, the entire crew, broadcasting the first ever Creator Classic, which is going to be on basically everywhere, right? ESPN Plus, Peacock.
Yeah, YouTube Live. It'll be everywhere.
If you can find some sort of streaming channel, that's where it is.
Yeah.
Hally, glad we could finally do this. Thanks for being on Eyes on Golf.
Thank you, Jeff. Thank you for having me. This is so much fun.
Thank you to Hally for taking the time. The Creator Classic will be the Wednesday of the Tour Championship at East Lake, the Wednesday before the Tour Championship, and she will be a part of that team. Jake Marsh, who's been on this podcast as well, Dan Rappaport, who I'm hopefully going to get on this podcast soon, and you'll see a lot of other familiar names there. So appreciate everyone listening to Hally Leadbetter on Eyes on Golf here, and I will see you next time.